It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. As we move into a Friday, we are waiting the arrival of Gary McNamara to the Red Eye Radio headquarters. Any moment now, we believe there are helicopters that have been following McNamara in a slow chase. I didn't know you drove a white Bronco. That's weird. Is that a Buffalo Bills thing?
You know, I would have. I can't believe I'm late for the show.
Well, you stepped out with like a minute left to go make coffee.
I didn't even look at the clock.
Yeah, no,
and the funny
apparently.
thing is, I would have made it in like 3 or 4 seconds earlier.
Yeah.
But I had the coffee in my hand, and I'm like, this thing's going to spill. And it's really hot. I'm like, it's going to spill all over my hands.
That's what by the way, that's what they taught us when we went to corps-style marching band. You had to be, you had to walk even. And so the band director made us take cups of water. You couldn't filled, so you had to walk. And he said, we're not going to carry our instruments today. We carried our cup of water. You don't spill the water. So they teach you how to move like a machine. That's how those marching bands do it. And in Del Rio, Mr. Lang, our high school band director, he was kind of an odd guy, but man, he knew his stuff, and that's how we learned. And so now when I make coffee, you're going to see me doing a marching band run down the hallway.
I'm doing one of the, what do they call it, badge showings?
Yeah, right.
Where you come into work, you show your badge.
I
and
call
then
it
leave.
Lloyd Austining.
You heard the Inspector General.
Yeah, is looking
the
into
Pentagon's going to look into
it. Yeah, I don't know how you. I don't know how you don't. Kirby was being asked about it again today. I mean, these questions aren't going to go away. And Kirby, a.k.a. William H. Macy. Oh yeah, no, we think it's really bad. No, it can't happen again. We know that. Yeah, we know. And it's something where when you look at every aspect of this. I haven't talked to my dad specifically on this. We did have a nice talk show last week when we talked on my birthday. But a lot of the conversations are much shorter, but I can't wait to see him again. I had this upper respiratory thing, so I haven't been able to see I didn't see my folks all during the holiday break. During the Christmas break, I was pretty much staying at home because I wasn't feeling well. I didn't want to take that to their doorstep. But now I can't wait to talk to him. My dad was a ranking NCO, so he was an E9. He retired as an E9, enlisted 9 stripes in the Air Force, Chief Master Sergeant. And
he works for a living.
Yeah, exactly. That's from
was that Black Sheep?
Black Sheep.
Was that Black Sheep Squadron?
Yeah, Red West. Yeah. You're college boys with his cigar and the whole thing. I love that. But I always thought of that. My dad got his master's degree, but it was too late. He got it later and no longer, because of his age, no longer qualified for officer training school. But he is an educated man and of course, well respected by his children and many people. And, the closest person to me with that kind of military service. And we talked to Mary the other night. She called in. She's a retired colonel. She talked about it, and we talked about the whole thing of, look, Lloyd Austin is a 4-star general. You don't get to that point without knowing the very basics. Even a 4-star general has to tell somebody when there's going to be something different in his schedule. That's just the way it is. I thought of some truck driver friends of mine, and they haul some sensitive equipment for the government that is tracked. And all of their stops have to be planned, and if there is a change in that, I don't know if that's still the case. This was several years ago. It's been a few years since I talked to them. But if there is something that changes in their route or their schedule, then, all of that has to be communicated immediately because of the sensitive nature of what they haul. All of these checks and balances are in place. I don't care where you work and what you do and what your role is. There's nothing that excuses the way that Lloyd Austin behaved. But then beyond that, I would love to say, well, Lloyd Austin owns this. But everybody in the line under him and above him owns it too. His bosses didn't know it. His deputy secretary didn't know it. How was all of this happening? And it's, well, it was January 1st. It was a holiday. And people were sick. And there's no excuse.
And last week, they were planning the Houthi attacks.
Yes.
They were in the planning stages already.
Exactly.
These things don't happen. They don't happen, and you don't attack the number of sites. That just doesn't happen. Okay, let's just attack it now.
Right. No, that goes on for a long time. Exactly.
So you think about, and we'll get to that coming up here in a little bit.
Right.
But when that happened yesterday, I thought, oh my God, all that stuff was going through, and so you have to ask the question, who's in charge of this?
Right. Who's making these calls?
Is it somebody on the joint? Who is the? And here's the question I'm asking: who is the civilian in charge here? Mm-hmm. We know the military people are doing it, but who is the civilian?
Yeah,
monitoring what's going on and saying, okay, yeah, we agree. Okay, yeah, we agree. We do live in the United States where the military is controlled by civilians, not the military.
Right.
And so, that would be the question that I would have on that. But I'll tell you this. Think about this. White House looks at the Lloyd Austin thing, no big deal. The people in the know don't. We talked about the op-ed piece from the former aide to Bush, who was also, I think, Assistant Deputy Secretary of HHS. He just said, because you're an aide to the president, you're in one of these things. You're you're anything close to the White House. You're anybody in the executive branch of any authority whatsoever.
Right.
You have no vacation days. You're expected to work 24/7.
Yep.
And he went through that. The people that he talked about, the one aide that actually, when he was swimming, had his phone.
Mm-hmm.
So
in his Ziploc bag.
In his Ziploc bag, and he's swimming, and he would go down to one end, come back the other end.
He finishes a lap, he checks his phone.
Checks his phone and goes back. He goes, that's what happens. And he talked about Andy Card when he worked for Bush.
Right.
That he slept with the BlackBerry on his chest.
Right.
That you don't now we understand and we promote it. You had, the White House, whatever, no big doubt. No.
January 1st is a government holiday. I actually heard that yesterday, a commentator.
No way.
Yeah, say it wasn't anybody from the White House, but it was a commentator saying, yeah, well, because talking about the chief of staff for Lloyd Austin and how his chief of staff had the flu and the deputy chief of staff was also out. Well, it's a holiday. A lot of people are going to be out. You're never out. It's like saying, listen, y'all, Kim Jong-un has lobbed some things. They're in the air, but this being a government holiday officially, we plan as soon as stores open tomorrow at 8 a.m. to be back on the job defending our nation.
I got more public criticism for being 20 seconds late.
You did. The email are pouring in. Most of them are from our production staff. They're complaining that you actually made it in.
I just see here. I got an email. I'm in from Westwood One. I'm in breach of contract.
Why didn't you call? I got to be honest with you. I actually didn't know where you were. I took over some of your duties, though.
You did. It's like, Gary's not here yet. We're waiting for him. He must be getting coffee.
Oh, I had to make it into a bit. There was no way it wasn't going to be a bit.
Well, the best thing is I have no defense.
You don't.
I have no defense
Wow.
because I have publicly stated what my position was. And so if the higher beings or no the higher ups, the higher beings,
higher beings. I'm not sure it's extraterrestrials.
That's where they are.
Yeah, exactly.
They're our bosses.
Yeah, exactly.
You're in breach of contract. You were 20 seconds late to the show.
Exactly.
And what were you doing? Getting coffee?
The show starts at 12:06. Yeah, it's eerily similar.
Not 12:06:20.
That's right.
Well, I did
What
say.
time zone are you in?
Well, I guess my streak is over.
Yeah. What?
I said I've never been late for a show.
Yeah. Well,
now,
technically.
Now, technically, I was in here for a long time before the show began.
Yeah, exactly. See, that doesn't count, though. Because if I got up at 5 till and went home.
You have to be here when the microphone goes on, right? All right. What a show we've got today. I mean, I don't even know where to start, but we will. In fact, we'll start with coming up here in just a couple of minutes here. This is really incredible. Texas seizes control of a park. The Texas National Guard has seized control of a park on the U.S. southern border and is now blocking the Border Patrol from entering the area, part of an effort to stop the surge of illegal immigration into Texas, and a move likely to significantly increase tensions between Texas Governor Abbott and the federal government. Now, you and I both know why he's doing it. He wants to fast-track this thing to the Supreme Court.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because
it's look, and that's the one challenge that we look at right now, the court challenge that could be a huge, huge decider on what the states can do and can't do. I think it will be. It depends on how fast it gets there. I don't know if the administration wants to sue Abbott right now. Here's the thing. Oh, there's a good question.
Well, they already have. But I mean,
I mean, let me rephrase. Do they want this case to be as high profile now with everything going on in Chicago, New York City,
yes,
and everything else? Do the Democrats want that case to be, or does the administration want that case to be high profile?
No,
because here's the thing.
Not with the impeachment. The impeachment inquiry or whatever it is for Mayorkas right now going on the impeachment hearings. No, they don't.
Well, my question would be, all right, because you could make a case maybe that Abbott wrong leader. Mayor Brandon and Mayor Adams want it to be a high-profile case because they want this to be about Greg Abbott. And the administration doesn't because I don't know. I'm guessing they understand, or at least some have some understanding, that the American people know that the border is broken, and they know it's the fault of this administration. Now, I think I would, if I were going to lay down $1 on this bet, I would say the administration doesn't want this to be a high-profile case in 24. Because the thing is that imagine they were to fast-track this, and the hearings and everything else, all the coverage on that is going to, taking place. And some decision came down before November 5th. I don't know if it's going to happen that
right,
fast.
but I think it'd be more important is the politics of it, because the politics of it, you go back to the Arizona case, where the Supreme Court, the liberal Supreme Court at that time, said, and this is where local police would stop a car and ask if you were a citizen.
Right.
Remember? And they said, no, you can't help out.
Yeah.
You can't help us do our job.
Right.
You can't get involved in it if you're local at all. And we said, well, what they're saying is if the federal government intentionally does not follow the law, and they're not following the law.
Right.
Intentionally does not follow the law, and they harm a state, is there any recourse for that state?
I believe there is.
Can a state take into their own hands? And so we can look at the Supreme Court decision, but then just set that aside for a second and look at the politics of it, of Greg Abbott saying, this is insanity. we have a right as U.S. citizens and citizens of the state of Texas, if the federal government is going to attempt to damage our state and damage our cities and damage New York City and Chicago, he can actually bring that up.
Yeah.
And, and all these
Sure.
cities where these illegal immigrants, and should be migrants, because technically they're not illegal once they get the migrant status.
Right.
But, the migrants going there, we're letting them go where they want because we can't handle it, but we want to stop it completely.
Right.
We don't want to have the problem. We don't want New York to have the problem. We don't want Chicago to have the problem. But
Right.
the federal government is not doing it. I think that Greg Abbott will get a tremendous amount of sympathy across America for doing this.
I think politically, yes. And I can't wait for this case, by the way, the Border Patrol Union in support of this move by Abbott.
Yep. It's the politics of the case you can't win.
That's it.
Because what you're saying is the federal government can hurt states, can hurt
Yeah.
cities, can purposely, harm citizens of the United States.
Yep. By the way, hats off again to Bill Maloogian at Fox News.
Oh, yeah.
And also Breitbart, Texas as well. They've been on the border story for a long time.
So we got a ton of stuff. We'll start with that. And, there's just the U.S.-UK coalition striking Iran-backed Houthi targets in Yemen. And you see now all the Democrats are going crazy saying, you don't have the constitutional authority to do this.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, maybe you should have thought about that and complained when the Biden administration was allowing money to go to Iran, which then helped funded the Houthis. You wouldn't be in this particular situation of being so angry if we hadn't done that.
Right.
And the other thing, too, is I still don't think they have a point, the Democrats, on this, but it was, the Houthis under the Trump administration were considered a terrorist group,
right?
International, which means once you get that designation, you have no problem as president attacking. I still believe the president can do what he did, because of the attacks that happened constitutionally. But and
by the way, quickly, we'll talk about more about this. But did you see Blinken in his comment? The best way to isolate Iran is to create a Palestinian state.
Oh, did he say Israel? Make a Palestinian state?
He didn't say Israel. I said is to create.
No. But I thought I saw the headline that said, when I was just doing show prep earlier, and we got involved in another conversation that said Israel forming a Palestinian state.
Okay, I saw one clip, so maybe he said that somewhere along the way in another clip. But we'll get into that coming up.
866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Starting and charging system-related issues are one of the most common causes of winter breakdowns. So when your batteries talk, it's important you listen. Knowing the warning signs that could indicate your electrical system needs attention can help you avoid getting stuck out in the cold this winter. Have your batteries inspected by a professional technician if you smell any unusual or strong odors coming from the battery box. A pungent odor could indicate chemicals are escaping from a damaged or overcharged battery.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, we were talking about so much that this break is short.
Listen, there's so much going on.
There really is. I just was telling you, I said, there was so much BS yesterday. I said, I wish we were just doing a podcast that we weren't on radio stations so I could say the actual word, because we're being
BS
censored.
Friday.
Yeah, it's BS Friday because there was so much BS flowing around yesterday. We'll get to that and more coming up. It's going to be a great show.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So just to get through the story here, the Texas National Guard has seized control of a park at the U.S. southern border and is now blocking the Border Patrol from entering the area.
Yeah.
Part of an effort to stop the surge of illegal immigration into Texas, and a move likely to significantly increase tensions between Texas Governor Greg Abbott and the federal government. The state government has taken control of Shelby Park in the city of Eagle Pass, Texas, which has been at the center of the migrant crisis that has engulfed the U.S. border. Authorities have now set up razor wire and fences to block off the area. The Eagle Pass mayor said he was informed of the decision, that the decision was made as part of Governor Greg Abbott's emergency declaration. The mayor said, told reporters it was not something the city had requested. He said the understanding is that the Border Patrol was now not in the area as a result. In a statement, the Texas Military Department said it has maintained a presence in the park since 2021, including with security points and temporary barriers. The current posture is to prepare for future illegal immigrant surges and to restrict access to organizations that perpetuate illegal immigrant crossings in the park and greater Eagle Pass area. Who would those organizations be? The Border Patrol.
Yeah.
And this is
the
why,
only one.
And this is why we said when and this is why I want the Republicans still to be louder. You know, a lot of people in the conservative media are doing their job. The Republican Party isn't.
Yeah.
They're not. They're not messaging correctly. When Karine Jean-Pierre, somebody should be there. They need basically a media war room. When she comes out and says, Republicans don't want to vote, Republicans don't want to pay for more Border Patrol agents, the Republican Party could say, that's absolutely false. We want more Border Patrol agents, but the administration is taking Border Patrol agents to not be Border Patrol, but be border processing to bring people in. That we will not fund. Was that hard? I just did that ad lib.
Not that hard.
And
pretty simple.
You have I don't know if you get a spokesperson or you get a particular congressperson out there that is out there every single day attacking what they're saying in the White House concerning the border.
Yeah. You know, it will be interesting to see one thing in the official statement, the written statement by the city of Eagle Pass. They say that the city attorney is looking into it. And when the mayor made the statement, I thought, all right, you're in a situation where as a mayor, the mayor of all these border towns, the mayors of all these border towns know this. Your constituents want something done. You go back to Eagle Pass and you go back to, remember, the National Guardsmen who drowned trying to save people who were crossing in the river there. This goes back, was that 22 in spring of 22. And if you've been following Bill Mnuchin or anybody who's covering the border and the media, Eagle Pass has been the hot spot. And it just drains the Border Patrol of their resources, of their agents. I mean, so many of them have to be there. And it's one great example, by the way, of the back and forth on the funding, right? You know, the administration wants the funding so they can process more people through. And Eagle Pass has been one of these hot spots where basically you're just there to help everybody in if you're a Border Patrol agent. And the state of Texas, Greg Abbott, the governor, saying, no, this ends here. Right. And the Border Patrol union making the point that, this helps to free up the resources so that these Border Patrol agents, can work in other zones.
The Border Patrol union confirmed, because the Border Patrol, according to Bill Maloogian, his last post, has no response yet. But the Border Patrol Union confirmed to Fox News that agents were being blocked from entering by Texas soldiers, that's the National Guard, and praised Abbott for taking matters into his own hands.
Yeah, Bill Maloogian posted a quote from the Border Patrol Union, a statement, quote, Governor Abbott is not harming Border Patrol operations. He is enhancing them. His seizing control of Shelby Park allows our agents to deploy to troubled spots that experience high numbers of gotaways. Governor Abbott's actions should be seen as a force multiplier, end quote. And so anybody looking at this equation, you know what the situation is. But if the orders are, no, we just need you there, from the administration, Biden, Mayorkas, no, you're just you're there. You're not Border Patrol. You're border processing now.
But think about this. When was the last time? I don't remember in my talk radio career. So we're going back. I don't remember since I've been alive that there's been a case where you had the federal government, a state government basically say the federal government is not enforcing the law. We are going to keep the federal government out of here, and the federal agents are being blocked by state National Guard. I don't remember the last time anything like this has ever happened.
No.
But I'm not surprised that it happened.
Well, I would love to have been a fly on the wall with Governor Abbott, and the situation that is already in play on, defending his own state, as he should. And then adding this to be the next step. You mentioned earlier, you think this is clearly a move to ramp up and bring about the challenge and bring it to a higher discussion. To me, it's always been, for conservatives, I think it's always been one of the greatest concerns. And now we're at an unprecedented level of concern with this situation. So you do something that is, I don't remember any state doing this. I haven't seen anyone written anywhere, any media coverage that say it's unprecedented. But I don't remember this in my experience, and I spent years in Del Rio. But we haven't been to this point. We haven't been to this critical point where it is now the Border Patrol's job, according to this administration, to process people through and give them a court date sometime after 2030 in some cases. That's not protecting the border. Well, we don't have any more detention facilities. We're not going to, they just make every excuse in the book.
Here it is. Separately, the Biden administration has sued Texas. This was last week, the week before?
Week before.
Sued Texas over the recently signed anti-illegal immigration law that allows state and local law enforcement to arrest illegal immigrants, which the administration says interferes with the federal government's authority and frustrates the U.S. immigration and operations proceedings and hurts relations with foreign governments. Well, what is the operations and proceedings of the U.S. immigration policy? It's to let people in.
Yeah.
And then they can go anywhere. It's not like, for example, if you had the federal government say, all right, we're going to fund it all, that you cross the border and then you're in massive detention centers, and the federal government was doing it, then you could actually say that the federal government was enforcing laws, was enforcing the border law more, because they would have massive detention centers where they would stay. Right. When you say you come in and then you just go wherever you want.
Yeah.
And you go wherever you want, and you will become a burden wherever you end up, and the federal government is not going to pay for any of it, it's on the state or it's on the city.
Yeah, right.
I do think the federal courts, because this is, and you and I said this with the Arizona case, and we said, well, I believe the Supreme Court's wrong there. What happens when the federal government, it is a totally legit constitutional question. What happens when the federal government intentionally harms states?
They're using resources to do it. They are directing their own agents to do it.
Right.
In every way, they are proactive. It's not just that they're not doing their job efficiently. No, that's not the case. They are proactively spending their budget to hurt these states.
Yeah, Ted Cruz said something like that, I think it was yesterday, on Mayorkas. It's like, it's not that Mayorkas is as bad as his job. He's not doing his job.
Oh, I'm glad somebody else said that,
Right.
because I've been looking,
Right.
because you kind of hear that in the defense, right?
He's actually succeeding in his job, which he believes his job is to allow as many illegal immigrants into the United States as possible.
Well, that's it, because I can hear them, people saying, trying to defend the Biden administration. I don't know who that would be these days, but if you're trying to defend the Biden administration by saying, well, government's not very efficient at anything and blah, 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 and it's a huge... No. They are proactively administratively changing our law on immigration. They are expanding the law just simply by saying so. Asylum. I'm coming here because, I'm sorry, did you say asylum? Okay, go ahead. It's just ludicrous, and it is a concerted effort by this administration to damage these states. And many of these individuals may end up in Chicago or New York, but it doesn't change the fact that the border states suffer the most, because that's the immediate impact.
If I was the governor of the state of Texas, I would do the same thing, because my responsibility is to protect my citizens.
Yep.
And the federal government is on purpose. This isn't an accident. It's not that things are out of control. This was calculated by the federal government to harm the state of Texas and every other border state.
Right. Yep.
This was calculated. It's not that, well, this is just beyond our control. It's calculated.
It's calculated.
Because they have the resources right now to stop it.
Right. And as you mentioned, and I think it's a great point, and Abbott may use this, or in the back and forth in the legal setting, they're proactively spending money to damage these major cities like Chicago and New York.
Yeah.
The majority of the people being sent there are being sent there by the federal government.
That's right.
Abbott's not going to other nations and putting people on buses and bringing them into this nation. That's what this administration is doing.
Well, figuratively.
Well, yes.
The result is the same.
You might as well be.
Right, yeah.
But, here's the thing. You actually get it done faster by doing what you're doing now. Think about that. It would take you a lot longer to send buses into other countries, into Mexico or wherever, and bring them across. No, they want to be here, and they know that the border is broken. They know it's easy to get across.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, the U.S. Great Britain coalition strikes Iran-backed Houthi targets in Yemen. We'll get to that after the ship attacks in the Red Sea that basically closed the Red Sea.
Yeah.
And it was just like, my God, we're funding it, and then we fight it. Because
it's insanity.
And I say we're funding it because somebody would say, well, we're not funding it. We just allowed them access to their... No, because we had stopped it. And
Yeah,
because the
right.
Biden administration came in and reversed it, we're funding them.
Yeah.
Our decision funded them, and now, and then because Trump did it. So
Yeah,
Trump
right.
did. So if Trump did it, it was bad. No, it was good.
Right.
And we stopped it. Iran was not getting as much money that they would give to their proxies, and then they came in, and the Houthi terrorists were considered an official terrorist group and an enemy of the United States. They dropped that.
Right.
And now, what was it, yesterday, the day before, you got Kirby up there, well, we're thinking of maybe reinstating that again. We're led by a nation of damn idiots.
They're morons.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Soon to be, in a couple of days, very, very frigid across a significant portion of America, including Texas. And yesterday, I did something that I'm telling you, it was one of the best tools that I've ever gotten.
Yeah, what's that?
And it's basically my air compressor plunger.
Okay.
You know, it's you pump it up with a bicycle pump. Mm-hmm. And there's a little, and you can clear toilets with it. Mm-hmm. Now, I haven't had to use it for that. Now, when I saw it on Amazon a couple of years ago, I went, I gotta have that.
Yeah, right.
You mean you don't need to use Drano or anything like that? Well, knowing that I have to, probably have my faucets dripping inside, I noticed a couple of days ago that one of the drains in my master, bath, and I've got two sinks, it was a little bit slow. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, okay, I can get this thing out. And man, and it works. The thing is, it always works the first time, every time.
Right.
And I put it up to like 40 or 50 PSI, and I took that and I put it over I held it down with like, 50, 60 pounds. I'm leaning on it. You push that trigger, it goes, boom.
Yeah, right.
And turn on the faucet, it's cleared right through.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that was an enjoyable moment of my day yesterday.
Oh, man. You ever used a potato gun?
No.
Surprisingly, I only destroyed 4 toilets. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun. I love yesterday. My adult children. Well, all my children are adults. I'm not sure technically if I can say that about my son. Sometimes he is, but I always text them ahead of like severe weather, changing weather, and okay, did you do this and do this, and then they're okay. I did this, and anything else you think I should get ready for? The whole thing, because you and I. Doing this, we're always watching what's going on with the weather, and I realize that a lot of people don't, they'll certainly know it by now, but you and I have been watching this for days as this thing was building, and so I'm always doing the dad thing. Hey, did you make sure you check your antifreeze in your car? Make sure you do this and all this and doing the back and forth. Set my one daughter up with some, she lives about a little over an hour away from us, and I sent her some power banks, a really good power bank for her laptop and phone, because it looks like she'll probably be working from home on Monday. And I said, okay, in case we lose power, she had mentioned she didn't have one. I said, oh, no, we got to fix that. And, getting all of my stuff charged. I got everything, all my power banks all
so do I. I did the same.
plugged in.
Yeah, yep.
I do have a generator if I need to use it, if need be for larger things. But if the power goes out for an hour or two, a power bank's going to keep your phone charged, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I have power banks. I have like 3 of them, and you know what I have, which I can use for a variety of different things. It's in my car right now. It's one of the lithium-ion batteries, battery starters.
Yeah, the jumper. Yeah,
the jumper,
yeah,
and you can hook that. You can hook that up too, and that's a massive power bank.
Yeah.
I have like 4 of them.
Yeah,
and all I need is because I've the phones we have now, and it's funny because when I got the new phone, was it the S23? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
The Android phone.
Right.
When I got that, I was like, boy, the screen is large, and now it doesn't seem like it's large.
I was thinking that just the other day. I have the same phone. I looked down at it because I saw another phone. I was like, it actually doesn't seem that large.
Yeah, I know. It's like you get used to it after a while. And I think they keep making the cell phone pockets in, like, especially in cargo shorts, they keep making them every year a little bigger, a little bigger, a little bigger, a little bigger. I'm waiting for a pocket the size of an iPad one of these days.
Right.
But, I'm thinking, okay, I've got my 2 Bose surround sound speakers, Bluetooth speakers, and my phone, and those things last like 16 hours at a reasonable volume. And then I've got all the power banks. I've got my phone, and now because the cell towers, even if the power goes down, the cell towers will be up. They were up last time, and with the 5G now, because we both got 5G phones last year, it's like I got all my streaming services.
Right.
I've got so I can be set. But the one thing, and it ticked me off coming into work today, and I'm in a little bit of a nasty mood. You could hear the last part of last hour when my voice got louder. And I said, we're led by a nation of idiots. And you agreed with me because of the entire thing going on right now.
It's maddening.
In Yemen. I mean, it's absolutely maddening because it's idiots and out there. But it all, great mood, woke up like, okay, great, going to go into work and so many topics to talk about. And as I'm going through my subdivision, I see the natural gas company exactly where they were almost 4 years ago. Staging, well, not actually staging right there where they are there to boost the pressure.
Yeah.
Because there's a dementia center right there.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, my God. And I just thought about it, I go, we sit here and we talk about all the great technology of AI and where we're going, and technology is getting to be so great and automation so great that, all these incredible things. And we do. We live in a fascinating society. We really, you talk to my 97-year-old father that used to actually have an ice box and, a horse and buggy brought coal to their house and dropped it in their basement. And you see what we have today. And, we've made great advances. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, and we're going to have, I'm looking right now, 3 days in a row at night, 17, 17, and 10 degrees.
Yeah.
That's what they're expecting right now where I live. And it's not going to be as widespread as it was, for Frizola.
Right.
And still we're getting the warnings. I got the gas company warning yesterday.
Yeah.
Do this and conserve here and do this and conserve this and conserve this. And it just infuriates me.
Yeah.
Again, the idiots that are in control, that this is something, this supposed problem that we have, that we can't do it, is created by the government, has been created by liberals in order to destroy our energy, economic, and national security. I mean, it is, as we said before, it's economic, energy, and national security suicide. And it's what the people of the United States have voted for.
Yeah.
And the fact that 4 years later, and I know the state of Texas is trying.
3 years, right? Yeah.
21. 3 years. 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm getting COVID mixed with everything. That was.
Well, it feels like an
2020.
election cycle, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
a
does.
full election cycle.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so thank you very much for the correction there. See, we have higher standards here if we make a mistake.
That's all I'm worried about. all the emails I'm going to have to go through.
Yeah. Gary said he said it was 4 years. It's only 3 years. But with all the great technology we have today, with all the great medicine that we have today, the quality of life we have today, and this situation that we have here, and it just it was infuriating me as I had to just turn on the heaviest music possible on the way in just to blast it, because I'm like,
past couple of nights. That's funny you say that.
I just can't think of this because it's so insane that this is a problem that we solved, what, 70 years ago?
Yeah.
Having enough consistent energy in every single home, 70 years old.
Yeah.
Go back to, basically post World War II.
Right.
And you get into the, we'll put that date at 1950. Everybody had natural gas or heating oil or whatever. That was all taken care of.
Right.
We weren't having, we had major blackouts, but that was because it wasn't weather related. It was, the big blackout that was a problem, with the actual grid that happened. But we had the ability to supply everybody 70 years ago. And because of the idiots that we continue to put into elective office in the United States, we have people that go, let's destroy this nation. Anybody argue it with me, please. Any Democrat, please argue with me that this is a better way. You can't.
There's no way you can.
You can't.
There's no way you can. It's funny. Past couple of nights, including tonight on the way in, Five-Finger Death Punch, the new Judas Priest. I don't have a long commute, so I got to get it in. You know what I mean? I took, not tonight, but last night, I took about a 3-minute longer route because I needed to get some Five-Finger Death Punch in. It was one of those. It's one of those days where it's like, when are we going to quit laying down? When are we going to quit hiring people? Because that's what they are. They're public servants, hiring people that are doing nothing but breaking us and bringing us to our knees.
Right. We're paying our taxes to destroy
our
quality of life.
Right. Right.
I mean, it's just, it's insane.
Well, and I saw too, and by the way, I also want to issue a complaint on the music thing. I have Amazon streaming on my phone, and I do that and via Bluetooth in my truck. Mr. Bezos, stop it, because a couple nights ago, I'm on my way in. I'm about to bring up some Five-Finger Death Punch, and on my phone is Barry Manilow, a big picture of Barry Manilow. And it says, continue with your music interests. And I said, what? I don't listen to Barry. What's going on, Bezos? And Bezos, you know what this is. Because my wife wanted to hear some Michael Bublé Christmas a few weeks ago when we were traveling. And there's nothing wrong with that. I want to fulfill every wish she has, and she wanted to hear that. No problem at all. That doesn't mean that that's my category. Don't bring up a huge picture of, are you kidding me, Barry Manilow?
Well, I actually have the downloaded songs on my phone, and for me, what I needed to hear was the Canadian band, the Headstones, with Hugh Dillon, who's on Yellowstone, and he produces the what do you call it, the mayor of Kingston.
Mayor
Kingstown, whatever it is that on Paramount.
Right.
He works with Taylor Sheridan.
Right.
Oh, by the way, I'll probably be able to see Buck Taylor in the next couple of weeks.
The Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo.
Yeah. But I had to listen to Long Way to Neverland, It's All Over, Leave It All Behind, and their version of the Traveling Wilburys, Tweeter and the Monkey Man. Which is just, what I've always liked about the Headstones is the same thing I've always liked about the band Cracker. If you remember the band Cracker, that was big in the 90s. Is they were more punk grunge, but the philosophy of the music is not that all society is screwed up and they're trying to survive it. It's that they're screwed up.
Yeah.
And I'm
right.
like, okay, there's a bit of honesty there. It's
Right.
not society that's screwed up. I'm messed up.
Right.
And so for me, that's all I'm like, I like that because
Right.
there's a lot of honesty, in that instead of we're the purity and everything else in society is bad.
Well, that's funny.
And
Funny you say that. I saw Taylor Sheridan was on with Rogan recently, and I think he brought him up, by the way, in the conversation.
Hugh Dillon?
Yeah. And so but then I was thinking yesterday, you saw that the artist Jelly Roll was testifying on Capitol Hill
Yes.
About fentanyl. And he is somebody who's been very forward and honest about the addiction in his life, alcoholism, and growing up in a home filled with addiction and alcoholism and everything else. And, you look at the guy, tattoos all over his face and the whole thing. But yesterday I thought possibly the only guy inside the Beltway, because he was on Capitol Hill testifying, possibly the only guy on Capitol Hill speaking the truth yesterday was a guy with full facial tattoos and goes by the name Jelly Roll. He's a really sweet guy, by the way.
I know.
And
He really is.
And was just blunt with lawmakers saying, look, I've witnessed a lot of things in my life growing up in a home with addiction and alcoholism. Nothing comes close to fentanyl and what's going on right now.
I know.
And that's part of the border situation.
Thank you for saying that because I was right behind you on that one.
China and other nations are behind it, and we're allowing it. We're choosing this, and we can change it. We can change it quickly. Something like this can change quickly with enough pressure on this administration to lock the borders down. And if that's the one reason you want to lock them down, and it's a great reason, you should be outraged and absolutely vocal about it at every turn.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
The IFTA tax program redistributes tax revenue to states based on your actual miles run. Thus, the truly cheapest fuel can only be found if you subtract federal and state taxes and state surcharges from the pump price to compare. The strategy means that you buy without regard for whether you are paying more at the pump in taxes. IFTA also considers state surcharges, which complicates the fuel buying strategy. Indiana, Kentucky, and Virginia have per gallon surcharges. Connecticut, Kentucky, New Mexico, New York, and Oregon have per mile surcharges. While some owner-operators buy only enough fuel to get through surcharge states, this practice can backfire, depending on the actual cost of the fuel in each state. When comparing fuel prices, always remember, pump pride minus taxes equals the real fuel cost. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. And so, just with everything that we were talking about, that, you do get angry because we're not at a point when I first got, for example, when I first got into talk radio in '89, where you were saying, okay, these problems exist. What are we going to do?
Right.
Right. And we have talked about how liberalism has succeeded for such a long time. Or I'm not saying the ideas succeeded because we were borrowing on our future, as we all know.
Yeah.
But it was always, if we do this down the road, your life will be better.
Right.
And as we've talked about many times, if you're listening to the show, I think it's something really interesting that isn't talked about enough. That all liberal ideas now, all the major ideas, have come up against reality.
Yeah.
And reality is saying, you saw Hertz the other day. Sorry, got to get rid of these electric vehicles.
Yeah,
Nobody wants him. We knew that was coming.
Yep.
We said that back then.
Right.
We're not rocket scientists. We're not Einsteins.
Right.
You don't have to be to understand the basic concepts of how society runs, how electrical engineering runs,
right.
how, mechanical things run. You don't need to, the average guy and gal that I worked at when I was a machinist could understand all of these things.
Right.
It's not hard. And we put people that have no experience at all in how to actually run or build things, and we put them into position of power to destroy things.
Right.
And that's why we get upset. And that's why at times when I sit there and I'll be watching the White House press corps and nobody sits there and goes, you people are idiots.
Right.
And that's not going to happen, but you wish it would.
Well, we got a guy who was a mayor and is now in charge of the Department of Transportation.
Oh, what a judge. He doesn't have a clue.
How does that happen?
Doesn't have a clue.
The Bonus Show.
It's Friday Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Did you see Janet Yellen yesterday?
No.
I think she did an interview. I think it was on public radio.
I was going to say, was I at the wrong restaurant? I try not to eat where she eats. I don't want any mushrooms.
And she
I'll pass.
Well, she might have been on him yesterday. Well, the thing is, people feel great about the situation that they're in, but the reason they feel negative is because they worry about other people.
Oh, my
and
gosh.
I'm like, and that's why that was one of the reasons where I said, or you and I both said, we need to call this BS Friday because there was so much BS flying around yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my, shut
no, it's insane.
Shut up.
Look, I will say this. If she's giving a nod to conservatives, because we've talked about it, the reason that we're so passionate about what we believe is we worry about the future of our nation. So in that regard,
right.
Yeah, we're not. It's not just about us. I'm going to be fine when Social Security goes bust. But what happens with future generations? And also teaching all of the generations behind us how to be critical thinkers so that they can build their life to guard against inflation, anything and everything that they have control of. You want them to have the mindset to always be prepared and to think down the road, to look further than the car in front of you. And to borrow from the Smith system in trucking, you look further down the road so that you can anticipate, you can see what's going on. And you want young people, you want the generations behind us to do that. That's not how she meant it.
No, and so when I heard, I'm just like, wow. And the inflation report came out, as we know yesterday, back up to 3.4%. And everybody's trying to make excuses, for it. And as we've always said, remember that 3.4% is based on what it was a year ago.
Yep.
And that a year ago was based on the
year before,
the culmination of the increase from the year before.
Right.
And so it is affecting people. But when Janet Yellen said that, I'm just like, oh, my God, stop the BSing, for God's sakes. Can anybody ever be honest at any time? And then I see this in YouTube, in Yahoo Finance. 4 new theories for why everybody's bummed out. I read that headline and said,
gosh.
I really don't want to read it, but I have to because I do this for a living.
Right, yeah.
But I know this is a load of BS.
Yeah, it's garbage.
Like, come up with some theories,
Yeah.
It just can't be prices because, It just can't be because, well, but even when we talk, very quickly, going back to Janet Yellen, I'm going to be okay, you're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're at that time of our life, we're older.
Mm-hmm.
We've been employed for the longest time.
Yeah.
And so we've accumulated wealth
mm-hmm.
that you hope to by this particular age, but it doesn't mean that we don't feel inflation.
Oh, everybody feels it.
We feel inflation. So it's not that, as you said, we're worried about where the country is going. So there's that concern. But we also understand that, we've always been worried about the nation as a whole.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that we don't feel the inflation. Everybody feels the inflation. Everybody makes choices based on prices. Give you an example. I don't go to the sporting events that I used to go to anymore.
Right.
Not that, and I can afford actually to do it as a single guy that's been, working and doing this. And now national radio. How long have we been working together? Almost 19 years, I guess.
This summer it'll be 19 years.
And I was in major market radio for another 10 years before that. So, you end up doing, the first 20 years, you don't make a dime.
Right.
Which is why you work.
I remember having to pay to get into the radio station.
when you work 2 or 3 jobs. Yeah. Well, you know what it was like when I first got into radio? It's like that commercial I see all the time. Do you want to write a book? We'll publish your book. And have you seen that commercial? It's on constantly.
Yeah.
And they finally imply that you have to pay in order to get all these services.
Right, exactly.
It's not like they're going,
not a publisher coming to you going, we know you have a great idea.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
it's just we
know you have money.
Yeah, you want to pay us, you got money, and you want to write a book, we'll make sure we're not going to guarantee anything.
Right.
But that was sort of like it's like, do I have to pay you to be on the radio here?
Yeah, right.
But you still feel it and you make decisions on it because money, the one thing, and I've said this before, when I was probably 18, 19, 20 years old, a lot of my peers in radio, this was in music radio, they had the jobs that I wanted. Mm-hmm. And I went, wow, will I ever get there? And I really didn't get to where I wanted to be until I was where you could actually make a decent living till I was in my early 40s.
Yeah. I'm still working on it.
And I mean but they had all, now they were all out of radio because they were in music radio or, where what they were doing, they were, downgraded by the time they got into their 40s. Mm-hmm. And luckily, thank you, Sue. Mm-hmm. Rest in peace. And thank you, Sue, for making me do talk radio because, I didn't know that this is where I was going to end up. But, I just, I remember how they were doing so well.
Yeah.
And I was just like, how can I get there? How can I get there? And I ended up quitting radio because I sucked and didn't really know how to do it. And that's where I was, was a machinist for, 4 years? Mm-hmm. And then got back in and never got back out again. And so it's been a wonderful career. But all my I used to go to sporting events back then. And, it's like they were cheaper and everything else. But now I really don't go to – I see these people, buying tickets on the secondary market to an NFL game for $400, $500.
Yeah.
I can actually afford to do that. I would never do that.
Right.
Why?
The value isn't there.
The value isn't there for me.
Right.
So it really doesn't matter, when they sit there go, no – people are doing great. They're not worried about their own situation. They're worried about other people's situation. That's such a line of horse manure because everybody is infected by inflation.
Right.
Everyone.
Right.
And so what was so it was this article here from Yahoo. 4 new theories about why everybody is bummed out. If you're like most Americans, you think everything is terrible. And you're forcing pollsters and economists to find new theories to explain why you're so bummed out.
Am I forcing anyone?
Now, you know how painful it was for me to even get to that particular sentence.
It's painful listening to it.
Radios are being turned off all across America.
Stay with us, folks. It's your job as an American.
Yeah, right. If I stayed with it and read it, you got to stay with me.
Hang tough. Be a patriot.
And it's like for much of Joe Biden's presidential term, consumer attitudes have been woeful. Inflation seemed like a good explanation. It peaked at 8.9% in June of 2022, the highest in 40 years. For a while, the cost of rent and food was rising by 2 or 3 times as much as incomes. But inflation has fallen back to normal levels. No, you're BSing.
Yeah.
The inflation rate is still above where the Fed wishes to be and still is let's call it what it is, compounded inflation rates.
Yep, exactly.
If we're going to talk about compounded interest, let's talk about compounded inflation rates here. It goes, inflation has fallen back to normal levels, and some things are actually getting cheaper. Job growth is still strong. The economy is growing. The stocks are up. In normal times, that would coincide with a snappy improvement in confidence and increased optimism. But that doesn't seem to be happening. And so they're sitting there trying to pretend that this is something that we need to find the theory of why Americans are so bummed, because it's not reality. It's that Americans are somehow warped in their thinking.
Yeah. No, that's it.
Oh,
well, when you use words like forcing economists to discover why they're so bummed out, or, this is the arrogance.
And you want the theories?
All right.
Select pain points. While the inflation rate is declining, the cost of food, rent, and transportation is still elevated compared to pre-COVID levels. Well, that's actually good. Affordable housing is particularly a problem. Yeah. Still, it doesn't seem to explain how widespread the malaise is. Yes, it does.
Housing. Affordable housing is a problem. You just said it. There's nothing more unsettling than that. Shelter and food,
then they go,
our instincts are based in those two things.
And then listen to this. Millions of homeowners, for instance, were able to lock in super low mortgage rates a few years ago, which was a major money-saving saver offsetting other types of inflation. If those people are enjoying the savings, it's not showing up in confidence surveys.
Oh, my gosh.
Why not? I know. I mean, it's just, it's like...
Seriously, you're drunk.
I know. And then the next one, the other theory, Debbie Downers everywhere.
Oh, come on. Quit being such a Debbie Downer just because you can't afford a place to live.
Now, who said that a couple of years ago, that what Democrats basically said that same thing, that everything is really fine, that people just don't understand that? Was it? Could have been any Democrat. Could have been any Democrat.
Of them in the administration.
But some researchers think the overall tone of news people here is growing more negative, causing more sour attitudes in general.
Some people. I love that. I love those ambiguous words. Some people believe. Yeah, maybe it's that the media is covering exactly what's going on.
It goes, referred pain. This hypothesis comes from Greg Ip of the Wall Street Journal, who speculates that Americans watching scourges such as mass shootings, immigration chaos, overdose deaths, and overseas wars simply feel bad about everything. Well, you got some of it. The border will get people.
Right. Overdose deaths when it comes to fentanyl is part of the border problem, and so that's a problem.
Which is huge.
That's a great concern.
Inflation, where we're going. I mean, where you and I talk about the energy, economic, and national security suicide that we're committing. I mean, that upsets a lot of people. To fund the police, crime, the riots of 2020. All those things affect people. It's not just a couple of things, and then people think everything. No, these are the things that affect people's quality of life, you idiot.
Yeah.
And then finally, political fatalism. And I don't have to go any further than this. Are you ready? Political fatalism. Paul Krugman of the New York Times. So it's like, all right.
It's over.
It's over because it's pure BS.
Now, that's when I click onto something else. It's garbage.
So, I mean, trying to figure out the theories. Why are Americans so sad when Why are Americans so negative when Americans should be so positive?
Yeah. What they didn't lay out is a list of reasons as to why Americans should be more positive. Show me those big items. Show me. Because when it comes to affordable housing, like I said, basic instinct drives you to find shelter and food. As a creature, those are the two things we have to have. The border. Well, the border's part of the whole shelter thing. This is our home. And it is an invasion. And it's an invasion that's being facilitated by the leaders of our nation, by the top person, the most powerful person in the world. That is quite unsettling. Saying I'm bummed out doesn't even get close.
I know. But I had to read that. And thanks for suffering.
I love it. No,
thanks for suffering through that.
Well, yeah. Thank you, all of our listeners, for doing that.
And I had to suffer through it twice.
Yeah.
When I read it the first time and then the second time.
Yeah. Pour yourself a cold one. You've earned it.
we just can't figure this out.
Right. Exactly. We don't know why everybody is. Yeah, you do.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming, Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, we will get more on inflation out there. Wow. So much news. The Iowa caucuses are here.
It's crazy, and the weather in Iowa this weekend is going to be insane.
Yep.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He is Eric Harley.
Thank you for being here.
My Florida trip is off.
You had to cancel.
Yeah.
You had to cancel with Jerry and Mary because of Jerry.
Yes. Yes.
The Weather Channel has named this winter storm system Jerry.
With a G.
With a G, yeah.
Right, Jerry is with a J.
Yeah. Your friend Jerry is J.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Now, I talked about Jerry before.
Mm-hmm. Not the storm, your friend.
Right, yes. Well, we've talked about both Jerrys, but I've talked about Jerry before.
Yes.
Some of my best stories are about Jerry.
Mm-hmm.
I met Jerry, and we were bill collectors together.
Right.
At
who was better?
Say it. I don't know. He was initially.
What, did he work there before you did?
About a week before. And I saw him. You have to understand, he was 18 years old and the coolest guy out there. He really was.
All right. And you're only saying that because he listens. But
no, we've told the story many times. We've told it to his daughters. You know, they're now they're on their own, adults and married and everything else, doing great. Everybody who knows us knows the story. That I was about 2 feet tall. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating, but when I went to apply. It was my first year of college. Just started my first year of college. Or was it near the end? No, near the end of my first year of college. And I was still probably only 5'3" or 5'4".
Mm-hmm.
And when I went my first couple days of work, they thought I was one of the sons of one of the managers who just was in high school or something,
right?
Early high school.
Yeah,
they couldn't believe. I mean, that's how young I was and how nerdy I was,
right?
And Jerry was like the coolest guy out there. And I'll never forget seeing him the first time, and he's talking to somebody. And back then, I mean, probably you collect bill. We were always pretty good at collecting bills, but apparently somebody who owed him, was yelling at him, and he's yelling back at them.
Now, did you take money a form of payment over the phone back then? If they needed to pay that bill right away?
No, you couldn't do it. No, they had to go to the bank. They had to make a promise and go to the
So
bank.
you were just asking them, and they were pledging to do it?
Yes.
And I'm guessing in that case, all of them, 100% said, yeah, I'll do it. But not all of them, of course, followed through.
And so I don't know what he was dealing with, but he's on the phone in one hand, standing up, going, you got to do, and he's got, this is way, you can tell how long ago this was, 74, and a cigarette in the other hand, and he just looks so cool. And for some reason, and we always talk about this today, some reason, because you would have looked at this and goes, these guys they're not in the same circle of friends. They're just too different.
Right, yeah.
And he was one really that reached out and embraced me.
Yeah.
And we've been lifelong friends, since that point. But he is the one, and this would have been a couple of years later, when I was and I've told the story about working at the club. I was going to college and everything else, and was spinning records, actual records, and a guy I know went to college with worked at a disco, the Port Shark, it was called, in Cheektowaga, New York.
Right.
And there was like a shark tank and a small shark in there. And the DJ booth was a shark's mouth, and the mouth was open, and the DJ booth was in there. So you're behind all these teeth and everything else, these fake teeth.
Yeah.
Well, they wanted me to, he wanted me to fill in. I said, I'm not going to spin disco. And I said, I don't even know how to spin disco. I wouldn't even know where to start. I don't know the song. He goes, no, I'll give you a list of for whatever it is, 5 hours, all the songs, and rotate them and what you have to do. And he gave me like 3 different things, and you could just repeat it every third night, whatever.
Yeah.
So I went in for like 2 weeks and did it. But I didn't dress or anything like that. I was in, I don't know, flannel shirt and corduroy pants.
Right.
I mean, I did not fit that scene at all.
Right.
But they loved me. And back then, it was a small disco. It was the same people. Basically the same people. If you talked about the place could hold 200 people, probably 1,000 people went, and you would see, the same people coming back. And absolutely loved me. After 2 weeks, the ownership came up and said, management came up and said, we want you to stay. They love you.
Yeah.
And I forgot what they offered. It was a lot of money. It could have been, I know it was like over $100 a night, which was big money back then.
Oh, yeah.
And they said, except for one thing. And I said, no, I can't. I said, first off, I can't do it. I said, because I'm not going to take a job from a friend. And they said, yeah, but they really like you here, and we'll pay. And they kept upping it $10, whatever.
Right.
They said, now, the only thing is you're going to have to change your appearance. And I said, to what? And they go, well, we want you to wear leather pants, a silk shirt unbuttoned down basically to the navel with a gold chain with the shark's tooth at the end.
And you were in right away. You were like, oh, my gosh, yes.
I was like, goodbye.
Yeah.
I was out of there. And so I was trying to find another job, and my buddy Jerry, who said, look, there's this rock bar. It's a real great place called the Rickenbach in East Aurora, New York.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, okay, great. This
now we're
cool.
talking.
And he says, now we're I said,
what year would this have been?
This would have been 76, I believe.
Oh, man, in the heat of disco.
Yeah, but this was rock. I mean, this.
I know, but
right.
But
it was
the disco club would have been.
Oh, yeah,
like the place. On the rise. Let's see. Saturday Night Live was 77, I think. 76 or 77. I think it was 77.
Yeah.
So Saturday Night Fever, not live. Sorry, two very different productions. Saturday Night Fever, the movie, which catapulted disco and the Bee Gees into every home.
And so this is the kind of friend that Jerry is. This shows you why we're so tight years later.
Yeah.
So I, go in there and interview, and they say, well, we want you in this Friday night, like at midnight, and you'll fill in. We want to see what you can do for an hour.
Right. Playing rock music.
It was a rock bar.
Yeah.
Bikers and stuff came in, but it was a very nice place. It was very, very nice.
Mm-hmm.
But nice bikers, nice bikers would come in. And so it gets to be, 12 o'clock, and I'm like, okay. And I picked out, really good, I said, what will get this, it's a suburb. It's outside Buffalo a little bit. So a little bit more rural, and so I said, okay, fine. What do I start with? So I put together a playlist that would last me an hour. Well, so I get up there, and I can't remember what I said, but, the other DJ, said, and here's Gary McNamara, whatever. And everybody went crazy, and I went right. I said, thank you, whatever. Thank you so much, and went right into
Songbird by Anne Murray.
No, went into the Canadian band Trooper, Raise a Little Hell.
Oh, there you go.
Which starts out, Raise a Little Hell.
No, there's not a better song.
No.
Especially at that time. There wasn't a better song.
There wasn't a better.
If you're going in a bar like that.
Yes.
Oh, come on. There's not a better song.
Yep. And people, and you hear it still at hockey games today.
Yeah.
If you any NHL game, you'll hear it in the background. Raise a little hell. Raise a little hell.
Man. Yeah.
And the NHL
still
plays
has the
it
same
constantly.
emotion.
Yes, it does.
I got goosebumps right now.
Yeah. Well, I so did I. Because it just.
That's one of those songs.
But I remember, and the sound booth was like the bar, basically a U bar, and I'm back behind the bar. I'm up about 10 feet in the air behind the bar, and the bartenders were below me.
Right.
The place went crazy. I mean, they went nuts. It was like a riot, and the entire hour was like a riot.
Yeah.
So I'm done. The other guy comes up, looks at me like, the hell are you? What's going on?
Right.
I walk off, the owner and the manager are there, and they said, you're the best damn DJ we've ever heard ever in our entire lives. We have never. And I'm sitting there going, what the hell do I have here? What special did I do here? So and he said, well, you're hired and you can work these days, and you're just wonderful. We're just so happy to have you here. I sit there and I go back to my buddy Jerry, and I said, I got it. I said, man, they really love me. I did a great job. He goes, well, I helped you out a little bit. Go, what do you mean? He goes, you owe me about $100 because I bought everybody in the bar like 5 shots and told them my buddy comes up at midnight, you go crazy. So,
wow.
So basically, I got the job through bribery.
Yeah. And alcohol.
Bribery. Yes, too bad. Bribery and alcohol.
Yeah.
So
well, when money and booze come together to make things work, it's a beautiful thing.
and so we've been friends, and it's like, he lives in Florida and I live here, and it's like, we normally get together Memorial Day, and this year it's like, let's do it again.
Yeah.
We're getting older. We need, because we just you don't get a chance. And in your daily lives, because he's still, he's like me, he'll probably work till he can't anymore.
Yeah.
That's just the kind of people. I mean, maybe that. And we talk about, what was it? Well, we had the same work ethic. We really, really did. Even though we were different, we had the same kind of work ethic, and we were always goal-driven. And so you just like to get together to have conversations, because in your normal day, you can't. I mean, you may text, you may say something, but you don't have those conversations. And just to be able to get together and do that
it's cool.
Is great.
It's I talk about my friends that I've known since grade school, a group of guys from Del Rio. We call ourselves collectively Los Guys, because we started this. We went to a high school reunion for Del Rio. I didn't graduate down there, but I went to a high school reunion down there, and then all of us guys, got together, and a few of us played guitar and other instruments and the whole thing. All of us, but a couple, were in band together, including the former U.S. Border Patrol Chief Raul Ortiz. He was also in the band with us, in high school band. And so we had that. It was like, well, why don't we get together and it's just the guys, and every year we'll just kind of, and then we called it Los Guys. And we, a few years ago, had this gathering and one of the guys has a place out in the country, not far from here. And that's where we get together. We can go out there. We can on his land. We can, shoot guns. We can blow things up. Tannerite's a great thing. Use it responsibly. And it is legal, yes. And we took down a tree. I think I showed you the video, but all these fun things that we do. And we had a conversation one night sitting around because one of the guys passed away during the COVID period, not from COVID, but he passed away. And we were that was that first gathering since his death. And one of the guys said, a great question. Why were any of us friends with each other? First of all, there's school, right? In a town like Del Rio, we got one high school. And then grade schools kind of split up. And there are some of us who went to certain grade schools. Others went to other different grade schools in town. But, school's the one thing that, okay, we met each other in school. But then why did we form a clique, right? And in that setting, why were we friends? And, I was talking to one of my buddies, and he's a home builder. He goes, because I talked about my friend, our friend who passed, David, and I were very close. We used to, he was an only child, so we were able to, I would love spending the night at his place on Saturday night. We could watch SNL because he had a TV in his room, which nobody had. And, we were talking about all this, and one of the other guys brought it up and said, all right, why were we all friends? And then it came around, I was like, to that one friend, he's a home builder, highly successful. I said, you were a guy on a mission. We had a lot of fun as kids, but you were a guy there was something, I could see it. Your brain was working on something, and I could tell you were a guy that was going to, succeed. And so you're kind of, when you pick out friends and people, that you associate with, that's kind of what you're attracted to. What you really gravitate towards is, all right, something I can learn from this person, or, something that you get from someone. Sometimes it's a sense of humor or whatever, but and common interest. But that's always been fascinating to me, of how we associate with other people. And like you said, you and Jerry, if you look at the two, standing next to each other, you said, all right, these two don't fit in the same group.
50 years ago, 50 years ago this May we met.
Yeah, and that's, the same thing with my friends from Del Rio. It's like, but there was something going on generationally too. Because we always say, something was going on in Del Rio. There was just something great at that time. And we were, all the kids that we know that were growing up there, just great people. But it was, that it was also something where you say, all right, but it was more meaningful. It was, and I do wonder sometimes, generations today, are they going to have their friends that they hung out with, when they're in their 40s? Are they going to still be, look, with Facebook, you can do it if you're going to be on Facebook. But I mean, hanging out, visiting each other and that kind of thing. And I wonder about that.
And I think the great thing is as you get older and you've had friends, because same thing with my buddy Jeff, too, because those are the two closest people to me. Jeff I've known since he was 8, and Jerry I met when we were bill collectors. But you can actually tell, you're not embarrassed to tell them how much they mean to you.
Oh, no, not at all.
And how much you appreciate
their
support.
I love all those guys.
And everything else. And that's a wonderful thing, because people always say that, well, you shouldn't leave anything unsaid. And for the most part, with most of my friends and my family, we, they know how I feel about them. And you sit there and you go, well, I've done everything I can do. I mean, when you go through life, you're like, I've done everything that right way. People know how I feel towards them. And I think when you've had that kind of a friendship for half a century, you still want to see them again and tell them again how much you appreciate everything that they've meant to you over the years and how they do currently right now. And it's not like review, this is the end of our lives, because we're all still working and doing things and being productive and have the same mindset towards the excitement of life that we had 50 years ago. It's really great.
Well,
that's
I
really
talk
a
about,
wonderful thing to have. But I can't.
It really is.
But I decided not to go because of the cold weather coming in and everything else. We're just not used to that back
You'll
here.
see them soon enough, though. And,
I'll see them again. Yeah.
But, Coach Valdez, in Del Rio, great teacher and coach, inspired me to go into band when I tried out for the football team. But I wrote him. It was a couple of years ago. He's a judge now down there in the Rio Grande area. And I wrote him. I said, you need to know. You're a great influence on my life as a teacher and a positive person, and it was great. And it is interesting how those relationships, especially with our close friends, they can last when, they're meaningful.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Democrats getting on the case of the president for bypassing Congress to strike the Houthi terrorist camps and other armed sites in Yemen.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, we'll get to that. Fannie Willis.
Yeah.
You didn't hear anything from her camp yesterday after the accusations. Nothing. This thing could you think about that if that one blows up, because that one is the one that so many in the media, the liberal media, jumped on and said, okay, they're going after Trump for the RICO Act.
Right.
This is the RICO Act. And we said, this is ridiculous. The RICO Act was never meant for this. And now everything that we brought to you yesterday on that, the allegation that the one co-defendant of Trump and the lawyer found out is just, we'll go through that coming up here in just a little bit, but that could blow up everything.
And the fact that she didn't say anything yesterday actually makes it worse for her.
I know.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. One of the things that we talk about a lot on the show is economics. And we have debated the left for years on it. Not as much anymore because, as we're finding out, whether it's the liberal, the Keynesian economics that they have, promoted, or, the fact that, cost of regulation and taxes and things like that don't affect the economy. One of the things that really isn't discussed as much as it used to be, because we would have Democrats call and go, well, no, raising the minimum wage has no effect whatsoever. And we're like, of course it does.
Yeah,
that's just economics. And we've talked about it for so much. It's one of the things that we love talking about, economics, because it's something that isn't as hard as people think. Because when you ask, what's economics? It's how people respond to incentive. And so when you have Democrats who for years say, well, no, raising the cost. You and I remember when it was like, that raising the minimum wage or taxing companies, taxing companies or taxing people doesn't affect the economy in a negative way. And we said, well, what are you talking about? Gasoline is you want the evidence that any price increase affects the cost of a product. Look at gasoline.
Yep.
And then we got to the absurdity of during the Obama administration, and it was down in Houston where gas prices were high at that point, and that would have been the summer of 2008.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been the summer of 2008.
Yeah.
Or it would have been the summer, because that's when gas prices hit their peak. Then they actually came down in October and November of that
Oil
year.
was at $147 a barrel late July of that year.
And Obama came out and was talking to a crowd down in Houston and said, are you sick of the high gas prices? Yes. Well, if I become president, I'm going to lower the gas prices by putting what was it? What do they call it again? The profit
the windfall profit tax.
Yeah, the windfall profit tax on oil companies, so they'll pay their fair share. And everybody screamed and cheered, and we went, "What idiots!" He just asked them if gas prices were too high. They said yes by their response, and his answer to them is, "Well, I'm going to raise them even further," and everybody cheered.
Yeah.
And we got some pushback. Well, no. Well, what do you mean? They're not going to raise it. And we said, well, now Democrats are picking and choosing. You're saying that that these companies are greedy, but if you tax them, they're not going to try to recoup that by raising prices or doing whatever they have to do, laying off people, going to automation more, whatever.
Right.
But you're just admitting that they're greedy and then saying, but if you raise the cost of doing business, they're going to stop being greedy. You're picking and choosing.
Right.
We don't pick and choose because we don't get to decide economics, which is how people respond to incentive and or disincentive. It's about people worried about their own self-interest. That's simply what economics is about. And you can tailor it to anything out there, and you can see through history it remains the same. Economics stays the same. Now, you can manipulate the economy, but you cannot change how people respond to incentive and disincentive. And I'll never forget, it was a couple years back, it was a Rochester, New York economist who came out, and he said it a little bit different than we did. He simply said, look, economics is simple. It's how people respond to incentive. End of story. Anybody else who says anything different is BSing you. It was that simple.
Yep.
And I'll never forget that. I'm like, oh, finally somebody picked up, because it's not, it's not that hard. And we have always said about for example, the tax system, the progressive tax system that taxes the rich so much that eventually it's going to come back to bite liberal states, for example, and possibly the United States, depending on where our tax system goes. And a couple of articles out on it yesterday. And again, these are things that we're saying that now liberals are saying. Here it is. Adams on taxes. We're hemorrhaging working class people, and we're worried about losing the tax base of the higher income people. In a broadcast on Wednesday, New York City Mayor Eric Adams responded to a question on state tax policy by stating, we're seeing a hemorrhaging of not only working class people, but we are concerned about losing that high tax base.
Oh, interesting.
Because that tax base pays for our police officers, our teachers, our firefighters, keeps our streets clean.
Well, when you shut down all the Trump businesses, that's going to be a problem too, right?
No, that's a great point, though. But when you sit there and you have a tax, as you, for example, see for California hits it, New York hits it, where you tax the rich a lot more, you've finally gotten to the point where the rich are saying, we're going to move. Right. So you don't need half the state to move.
Right.
All you need to do is have a couple of thousand of those millionaires or billionaires move from your state, and all of a sudden you've got to raise taxes on the average taxpayer out there.
Right.
And you're getting to that point now where, as we have seen, people are moving.
And the rich can afford to move easily, and they do.
Yeah.
You're seeing it.
And then, so that's one story that came out yesterday. Then this story came out, the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal. Gavin Newsom objects. The California governor is sure touchy about the Assembly's wealth tax. Is he worried more people will flee his state on his watch? These columns caught Gavin Newsom's attention this week. We're delighted to say that California is upset that we reported on the wealth tax proposal in the state assembly because Mr. Newsom says he doesn't support such a tax. How can't Gavin Newsom support taxing the rich more. What's wrong with him?
Well, number one, he's rich. But as a governor, he also knows the dynamic behind it. If you want to tax the rich more, they'll leave.
Mr. Newsom on Wednesday presented his budget for the coming year, including ideas to close a $68 billion shortfall. Then he lashed out at us at the Wall Street Journal. And they write, in Trumpian fashion. He called us ideological warriors, a broken clock, and shameful
Losers.
for he didn't have
Everybody knows.
for criticizing a wealth tax bill that was getting an assembly hearing that day. The state's been paying a price for the misrepresentation and lies being advanced every single day about this state, the governor said. Misrepresentations? The wealth tax legislation is real, and the hearing took place. Perhaps he's thinking of his own recent whopper that millionaires and billionaires in California pay lower taxes than low-income workers in Florida, or his claim that more people on net are moving to California from Florida. Maybe Mr. Newsom is so touchy because so many affluent taxpayers are leaving California, which is contributing to the state's enormous debt. The state lost $29 billion in adjusted gross income from population migration in 2021, more than triple what it did in 2019, according to the IRS. Between 2020 and 2022, the state lost nearly 40,000 residents with graduates or professional degrees on net. That's a net reduction of 40,000. What a brain drain. They aren't leaving because of misinformation about California. They're leaving in part because they see their tax bills, which they know will have to increase to pay for the state's promises to public unions and the ever-expanding welfare state. The governor forecast $38 billion deficit, some $20 billion less than the state legislature's analyst office forecast, by counting on higher tax revenues, in part from the stock market. But the drought in initial public offerings, which is partly to blame for the state's revenue slump, may continue. His rosy budget scenario assumes a reversion to trend in revenue following the pandemic boom. To fill the budget hole, he wants to draw on $13.1 billion in reserves and budget big gimmicks. One beauty shifts $3.4 billion in general fund spending to special funds, which draw on other revenue, such as the state's cap-and-trade program. He also plans to delay $5.1 billion in spending for future years. He even revives the trick of deferring government paychecks from June to July so they come due the following fiscal year. Mr. Newsom proudly said at the start of his governorship that we're getting rid of that gimmick. Will Mr. Newsom flip on the wealth tax as he did on this trick? The state cannot rely on accounting gimmicks year after year. That's why former Governor Jerry Brown campaigned for a ballot measure in 2012 that raised the top income tax rate to 13.3% from 10.3%. That tax rate was peddled as temporary, but was extended in 2016. Even as revenue surged, Mr. Newsom backed the extension. This year, California's top marginal tax rates on wages will increase to 14.4%, owing to a 2022 law signed by Mr. Newsom that removed the wage limit. That means the 9.3 marginal tax rate for middle-class California citizens will increase by 1.1% to 10.4%, more than millionaires pay in almost every state. Wow, that's interesting. That for middle-class California citizens, your tax rate will be 10.4% more than millionaires pay in almost every state of the union.
Wow.
By the way, Mr. Newsom's successor may also be less opposed to the wealth tax. Attorney General Rob Bonta, who has his eye on the governorship, championed the wealth tax when he was in the legislature. He also signed California onto a friend of the court brief, arguing that the U.S. Supreme Court should affirm the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision that a tax on undistributed income is constitutional. Congress must retain flexibility to disincentivize non-economic tax avoidance, the brief says. Non-economic tax avoidance. Oh, my God, they use every type of stupid phrase or word.
But honestly, because they have to soften it. It's just the way that things are written and phrased today drives me bonkers. Just drives me, call it what it is.
Well, I mean, he's just fear because he knows. It's just like, Adams knows, Newsom knows. Did I call Adams the governor? If I call him the governor of New York, I meant the mayor.
Yeah.
I want to make sure. I mean, I know he's the mayor, but did I just, have a mind blank there and call both of them governors? But, so Newsom furious at the Wall Street Journal for talking about the wealth tax because he's saying, well, I'm not going to pass the wealth tax. He's paranoid that it's being promoted and more millionaires and billionaires will leave. And this is the wealth tax they're talking about, Democrats, that would, even if you moved out, it would still figure out what your overall world wealth is, not just in California. Well, my God, you want to drive people out?
Yeah.
They're going to go.
They'll be gone.
And Newsom knows it.
Well, he's watching it happen already.
Yeah.
You want to ramp up the big exit? The entire state will be a state park.
So the left can talk, they're delusional. Their delusions on economics, but you're seeing the reality now.
Well, that's
in the population shifts and the problems that they're having with their budgets now.
Yeah. Well, it's reality.
Yep.
Tax the rich. Well, hold on. Let's talk about taxing the middle class.
Which they're doing very successfully in California with that rate.
Exactly.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. On everything, whether it's the border, whether it's to fund the police, whether it's, economics and taxes and everything else, everything is hitting reality now. And that's the hope that we have. I mean, it's unfortunate that we had to wait, that America was not smart enough. And people believed liberalism that sold you a bill of crap.
Over and over again.
Right. And now reality is hitting, and even some of the most liberal mayors and governors in the United States understand that.
Yep.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Just reading this article in Politico, Eric.
Yeah?
By Rich Lowry. Ron DeSantis will have to drop out unless he stuns in Iowa.
He doesn't have to drop out, but I mean, again, the aesthetics of being a sitting governor and then on March 5th, Super Tuesday, Florida voting in the primary for Trump and not you is not a good look.
Says DeSantis has to hope that some combination of weather-induced low turnout and overperforming ground operation and massive polling error lead lead. Where is it going to get better for him? Where else is he going to get the endorsement of a sitting governor and one of the biggest social conservative leaders as he has in Iowa? Where else will he have the time to camp out almost full time and the organization wherewithal to replicate his Iowa ground game? The nomination process is path dependent. Past outcomes affect future outcomes. If DeSantis gets zero momentum out of Iowa, he's not going to do any better than the roughly 6% he currently has in New Hampshire, which would be good for fourth or fifth place. And that would be no help going into crucial South Carolina, where he sits at a distant third with about 11%. So, yeah, this could be his Waterloo. One school of thought is that DeSantis is overinvested in Iowa. There is no doubt that he is following in the well-established tradition of Iowa-oriented candidates who get zero traction in New Hampshire and fall short of the GOP nomination. Then they go through the history. Ted Cruz, a winner of Iowa in 2016, finished in third in New Hampshire with 12%. Rick Santorum, who took the caucuses in 2012, finished tied for fourth with 9% in New Hampshire. Mike Huckabee followed his Iowa win with 11% in New Hampshire. Good for the Bronze. None of them won South Carolina either. Of course, it would have been better if DeSantis were equally strong in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, but it has been a steady slide for him in New Hampshire, where his emphasis on culture war and Southern flavor haven't won him any friends, and in South Carolina, where he was up against two home state politicians in Tim Scott and Nikki Haley until late last year when Scott dropped out. Look, we talked about this yesterday. We were talking, well, not specifically this, but we were just talking about the fact of when you see in the Republican Party right now what I perceive as the passion for different candidates. And you looked at all the candidates out there. Of course, there's passion for Trump. That's a given. There is passion for DeSantis. Yeah, there has been passion for DeSantis. The problem with DeSantis is a lot of the passion for DeSantis. It's like when Trump. We said this yesterday. Every time Trump tries to seriously criticize DeSantis, it really doesn't work because most people who are going to vote for Donald Trump like Ron DeSantis. And that's the problem. Right. Because DeSantis to them would be a totally tolerable choice, completely a great choice for most Trump supporters if Trump wasn't going to run. You look at Nikki Haley, or when we talk about Nikki Haley, there's no passion. That's almost like that's being driven by independents. Chris Christie was the never Trumper in it. And Ramaswamy, a small number of people like him, not because he has experience, but because he has made some great arguments and really communicated the way that a lot of Republicans, want the Republican Party to communicate and actually debate. But he has no chance of winning. And so when you look at it, the problem is for DeSantis is much like, I believe that the problem for DeSantis has always been the people that really would support him in the Republican Party are going with Trump first.
Well, this is the thing, too, is that we've mentioned this before, but this is not a momentum gain that he has. Where he is where he left off last time.
Yeah, that's a great. That's believe it or not, that's one of the most solid political points. So an analysis of what's going on here. Well, in that very short sentence you had,
I think it's important because you and I, when we look at the polls, it's like okay, we can talk about whether the polls are accurate. You and I look for movement within the polls. So when you talk about momentum of the leading candidate in the primary, that is Donald Trump. This is not a momentum situation. It's where he was, where his base is, and it's not budging. There's movement in New Hampshire. Nikki Haley gaining and Trump dropping a little bit. I don't see Nikki Haley. New Hampshire's a week from Tuesday. I don't see her coming from behind in that short period and winning New Hampshire. I could be wrong. But what I really don't see is Donald Trump losing what he has. Trump's base is rock solid, and you're not going to move it. So if you're not going to move it and you're DeSantis, again, it's not, I'm with you. On the issues, DeSantis checks all of those boxes. That's great. But it's not his time because Trump's already there. And that's just the way it is. You can say, well, I just the way it is. The numbers aren't moving. They're certainly not moving for DeSantis. If DeSantis were getting, because there is momentum with Nikki Haley, it's all about the independents. If DeSantis were getting that kind of momentum of with New Hampshire, all right, I could see him staying in through New Hampshire. It's, again, we're talking about inside of 2 weeks here now. It's a week from Tuesday is New Hampshire. So then you look at that, at the real lack of movement with Donald Trump, and it is not New Hampshire aside. There's nothing that's going to change the big picture here without Donald Trump, and God forbid an illness or something like that, or him just stepping out saying he doesn't want to do it anymore. But that's, those are likely not to happen. So you have to ask yourself, because at a campaign stop in Iowa, this is just the other day, DeSantis is there, and one of his a key campaign people there in that state, said something. He was on stage, small room, and as the campaign stops often are, and they said something to the effect of, well, you need to stay in because the number one guy may be in jail. And, DeSantis kind of affirmed that, and that's kind of, was the thought there. But then you have to look at reality. I don't expect Donald Trump to be in jail on November 5th.
No.
And if anything, those cases are helping, are giving him momentum that might not be there without the cases.
Now, Fannie Willis might be in jail by then.
She might be. And her boyfriend. So you have, if you're in the DeSantis camp, if you're his campaign manager, or if you're Ron DeSantis himself, you have to be asking yourself that question. How long do you really want to stay in? And is your only hope Trump could be out for some reason that's beyond the political support that he has right now? And I just don't. I don't see why you would stay in after losing Iowa, especially after New Hampshire, if you don't win that, which he's not going to.
Now, I've no way of proving this, because you can't prove what doesn't happen,
right?
What isn't happening,
right?
But if Trump was out, I believe that DeSantis would have unbelievable numbers right now.
I think so.
I think the problem for DeSantis is the fact, as I just said before, that most Trump supporters, and I believe the vast majority of Trump supporters, would have no problem voting for DeSantis like this.
Yeah.
When Trump came out, remember when Trump came out and said something at his rally and he was booed?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Went after DeSantis, it was like, no.
Yeah.
Not the same.
Right.
Nikki Haley, it's more moderate, independent Republicans.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ramaswamy, again, I think, young ideological Republican.
Yeah.
But they look and go, well, he's got no experience. Christie is the never-Trumper.
Yeah.
And I think that breaks it down easily. And I think that if Trump wasn't running, I think DeSantis would be in the lead. I would have, if I was DeSantis, and again, you look and you say there's a lot of things that have developed in the last with Trump being able to extend it looks like he's going to extend everything, and with the Fannie Willis thing just coming out, that you're right, he may not even be prosecuted by that time,
right,
or the trials may not have taken place.
Right.
If I was DeSantis and knew that 2 months ago, I would have pulled out 2 months ago. I would have said, something, this isn't my time right now.
Yeah,
we're going to focus on Florida without ever doing. But for DeSantis to stay in and get there's no reason for DeSantis to stay in and get a number of losses in a primary when it's not necessary for him to do so, because I believe, Trump wins or loses in November. 2028's coming. Don't tell me that DeSantis isn't the top Republican candidate.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
He would still be the top.
I think so.
He would still be the top candidate. Look, Trump supporters are extremely loyal to Trump. They feel he was screwed over.
Mm-hmm.
But they look at DeSantis and go, what a great job he did, but we still want to vote for Trump now. But if Trump wasn't in, it would be DeSantis in 2028. Mm-hmm. It'd still be DeSantis' track record, because what DeSantis did, DeSantis is the one person. Now, it's a state, not a federal government, but he did things that inside the Republican Party they love. He got Democrats to vote for him.
Yep.
He got independents to vote for him. And after the first term, where he just barely squeaked by, he dominated the second election.
Right.
The second election that he won.
Yeah.
The problem is many people view him as having much of the same opinions on the issues where Republicans believe that they would both be successful and take the Republican Party down the same path.
Yeah, sure.
And I do think that Nikki Haley, that, again, look, comes to, DeSantis, and I still believe that DeSantis is the most electable Republican right now. If he was there
on paper,
on paper, and the fact that as you get closer to the election, Trump has extreme negatives that are still there.
Mm-hmm.
He's got
You're talking about You're talking about in the general
election.
The
general election.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I still believe that DeSantis is the best. Would be the best. And you're talking about after the campaign. Haley may be doing well now, but where does she really stand on the issues?
Right.
When you think of Nikki Haley, what do you think? And I'm talking about, not that she doesn't have stances on the issues, but to the average person out there, could they tell you why they would vote for Nikki Haley?
Right.
Well, she seems to be a moderate, and she on abortion, she she may be more moderate. Well, so you're saying it's just abortion,
right?
But most people, if you ask them about Nikki Haley, they can't tell you. DeSantis is well known
and has a track record as governor,
and has a track record. But if I was DeSantis, I would have pulled out already.
We talked about this. I think it was late November. And now you're down to the wire. I mean, we're down to the wire on Iowa on Monday, and then a week from Tuesday, New Hampshire, and numbers aren't changing.
And
the bump in the poll for Nikki Haley in New Hampshire. Tell me where that goes beyond New Hampshire.
And I still believe that DeSantis, overall, for what he has done, is the best Republican that exists right now.
Yeah, right.
If you're looking about the future of the Republican Party.
Yes.
I think he's the best Republican out there based on what he has done. So I'm not saying it being critical. I'm just saying not your time because of variables that have never existed before in a modern presidential election.
You're not going to change the situation right now.
No.
The reality is what it's going to be, by the time the convention rolls around.
But he's young enough where if he wishes to be president of the United States, he will be president of the United States someday.
Yeah.
I believe that about DeSantis.
I think so. Yep. It'll be interesting to watch. He's indicated in recent days that he's, and they all say this. They're in it for the long haul, that kind of thing.
Well, did you see, what was it, 2 days ago when Christie pulled out?
Yeah.
That thehill.com had a story where he was going after Sununu, saying Sununu's a liar, I'm not pulling out, and that was like 11:40 in the morning.
A few hours later,
Next thing I know, he's out.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean anything.
No, it never means anything.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. At a roadside inspection, inspectors may ask to see supporting documents. A supporting document is a document generated or received by a motor carrier in the normal course of business that can be used by law enforcement to verify a driver's logs. These documents can include bills of lading, itineraries, schedules, or equivalent documents that indicate the origin and destination of each trip. They can also include dispatch or trip records, expense receipts related to on-duty/not driving periods, including receipts for meals, lodging, and fuel, electronic mobile communication transmitted through a fleet management system, and payroll records, settlement sheets, or equivalent documents that indicate payment to a driver. Drivers using paper logs must also keep toll receipts. Supporting documents must contain the driver's name, carrier-assigned identification number or vehicle unit number that can be linked to the driver, the date, the name of the nearest city, town, or village, and the time. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Wow. It just keeps happening each and every day. I just love how this is written. In a blow to President Joe Biden's green energy agenda, rental company Hertz is selling off tens of thousands of electric vehicles due to a lack of demand to buy gas-powered cars. Now, I rent vehicles probably 10 times a year.
Yeah.
Whenever I go back to see my dad. So even more than that, probably 13, 14 times a year. And all of a sudden, I was looking through the options, and there's an electric vehicle. Like, are they kidding me?
Well, here's the problem. If you don't own one at home, curiosity may drive it, for you to go, why don't I try this out? That's very few and far between. EV owners may say, well, when I'm on vacation, I want an EV. So I'm going to look for some place to rent an EV. Again, even that is few and far between. You want to, because people, you got to know what you're doing.
Well, and when you're renting a vehicle, when you're traveling, you want use of that vehicle all the time. You're doing stuff.
Yeah.
You don't want to, where's the next charging station?
Right. I want to drive around.
And then there were some people that actually they wanted a gas car and they got an electric vehicle.
Yeah.
And were ticked off.
Data rates may apply. Do you need a car? Been shopping only to be turned down because of bad credit, low credit, no credit, bankruptcy, or divorce? Guess what? Today's your lucky day, because now you can buy a car, truck, or SUV, just about any vehicle. It's true. Bad credit doesn't matter. No credit doesn't matter. Bankruptcy or divorce, it just doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, your job is your ticket to your new vehicle. We're Auto Credit Express, and we've helped thousands of people just like you. Antonio H. told us, great company, got me connected, and the day I went in, I drove off in the car I wanted. 100% worth your time. Need a car? Get started now and drive off as early as today. Just text APPLY NOW to 88909 right now to get started. That's APPLY NOW to 88909. Auto financing the easy way. Text APPLY NOW to 88909.
Do you have over $10,000 in credit card debt? The stress from excessive credit card debt can ruin your life. collection calls, sleepless nights. If you're feeling the financial impact with unprecedented economic challenges, DebtBlue is here for you. DebtBlue uses secret programs that most credit card companies won't tell you about. They'll help you consolidate or settle your debts for a fraction of what you owe. With DebtBlue's Success Guarantee, you pay nothing unless your debt is reduced or completely resolved. There's no risk. The more you owe, the more DebtBlue can save you. See how easy it is to get started with free information. Let DebtBlue show you how 10 minutes could save you thousands. Call now. 800-200-6895. That's 800-200-6895.
I'm just living sky high right now. I'm very thankful for it. And the team at DebtBlue are phenomenal. They're able to work with you. They're great.
Call for your free debt resolution information now. 800-200-6895. 800-200-6895.
The IRS, the world's most aggressive collection agency. They can seize your property, bank account, and garnish your wages. They cause sleepless nights for millions of Americans. Don't be one of them. If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS or state, get protected today. Call 800-312-9970. Coast One Tax Group, protecting your bank, home, and your sleep since 2008. With hundreds of 5-star reviews and an A+ on the Better Business Bureau. Call Coast One Tax Group, 800-312-9970. Stanley from New York owed $93,000. The IRS placed a levy on his bank account. Coast One released the levy and settled with the IRS for $2,000. Mark in Michigan owed $225,000. After Coast One stepped in, Mark walked away paying less than $1,500. Call Coast One now. A 10-minute call can save you up to 93% on your back taxes. Get your fresh start today. That's 800-312-9970.
Progressive Commercial Insurance protects truck owners with specialized coverages for heavy trucks. Get a quote in as little as 5 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
The Bonus Show.
It's Friday Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. And looking at inflation, numbers came out yesterday. Consumer prices rose 0.3% in December, higher than expected, pushing the annual rate to 3.4%. Excluding the volatile food and energy prices, the so-called core CPI also rose 0.3% for the month and 3.9% from a year ago, compared to the estimate of 3.8%. Much of the increase came due to rising shelter costs.
And the reports, except for the month-over-month core CPI, everything was higher than the median forecast. And it's something we've talked about with Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, all this back and forth. It's interesting. Just a few days ago, there was a story about even though analysts believe he's going to lower rates this year, he's not done raising rates. He might raise rates a couple of more times. And then, of course, we get the inflation numbers out. I've never once believed that he was serious about inflation. And, you know, this is an indicator of the fact that I don't expect them to do anything about it. I think they're going to try and lower rates to do something. You know, if they think the recession is coming in, they're going to try and prevent a recession. I saw one analyst over the last weekend, saying, well, most of the talk about recession, the R word, has gone away. I thought, well, has it? Because you can only measure a recession in hindsight. And so, you know, when those numbers hit yesterday, some of the media sounded like they were surprised on the inflation numbers. And I thought, all right, you know, we'll see where the economy goes. But one thing remains, I'm not confident in Jerome Powell as Fed chair because I don't think they're serious about inflation. And, you know, I'm being proven right day by day, and we'll see where it goes. But as we mentioned also, and we've said this repeatedly, this is a compounding effect. That's 3.4% over the inflation of the previous year, which is over the inflation of the previous year. When we talk about prices, the increase in prices, the American people are feeling it, and yet the left wants to go, well, why is everybody so upset? Why does the consumer have a problem?
Quickly getting to economic growth, it was interesting because the World Bank came out yesterday and said the global economy is set for its worst half-decade of growth in 30 years. The global economy is on course to record its worst half-decade growth in 30 years. Global growth is forecast to slow for the third year in a row without a major course correction in the 2020s. Will go down as the decade of wasted opportunity, said the representative from the World Bank, the chief economist for the World Bank. The other thing when you talk about inflation, though, is when you look at it again, shelter costs are high. Everybody's affected by shelter costs.
Yeah.
There isn't because that includes rent and buying a home.
Right. Yeah.
And so shelter costs affect everyone. Nobody gets around shelter costs. You can look at things in inflation and go, yeah, but this came down and that came down. Yeah, but that's an option. I don't need to buy that. When you look at other things, food prices increased 0.2% in December, the same as in November. Egg prices went up 8.9% for the month. I noticed that. I went in and went, eggs are higher. But they were still down 23% annually. Understand that eggs just weren't infected by inflation. Eggs were the bird flu last year. Is what really affected that. Energy posted a 0.4% gain after sliding 2.3% in November as gasoline rose 0.2%. Now, with what's going on after the United States retaliated against the Houthis in Yemen, gas prices or oil prices are going up. Went up from what I know, they went up yesterday, and probably may continue to go up. Airfares increased 1% for the month. In other key price indexes, and this is important because we've talked about, you can look at the general inflation number and you go, yeah, but I don't buy those things. Sports tickets up 30%. Well, I don't, most people aren't buying, sports tickets or something. I don't know what else. Deodorant you have to buy. I'm trying to think of something that it would be. Mops, for example. Mops went down 30%. Most people aren't buying a mop, every week. I just threw that out as an example. Motor vehicle insurance, again, something that's a necessity, 1.5% higher for the month. Medical care, 0.6%. Used vehicle prices, key contributor to the initial inflation surge, increased 0.5%. After being up 1.6% in November, but you take those 2 months, and it means they're up 2.1%. That's huge numbers. And people are looking more for used cars.
Yeah, sure.
So there you go. Fed officials are paying a particular attention to services prices as evidence for whether inflation is slowing or showing durable signs of getting back to the central bank's 2% target. I thought that wasn't their target anymore. I thought it was 3%. Somebody said it was going to be 3%, didn't they?
Right, yeah. That no one, I think that was an analyst or a couple of analysts saying, listen, 3 is the new normal. I don't know, maybe it is. If you can't reach 2.
Services, not including energy, increased 0.4% for the month and 5.3% from a year ago. So,
yeah.
Here it is. Despite the higher-than-expected inflation readings, futures traders continue to assign a strong possibility that the Fed would start cutting interest rates in March. There you go.
Yep.
You just brought that up.
Well, that's it. Because if they get, I said, I think back in early December, because you had a couple of analysts. One analyst said, "Oh no, it'll happen as soon as March, and they'll cut it a number of times, cut rates a number of times in 24." How aggressive they get, the size of the rate cuts, and how soon they start is going to give you an indication of how fearful they are of a recession. Because if we're still right now, not at that target rate, What, do you raise it one last time only to start cutting in March?
I mean, you raise it.
Because
the next raise would be February, right?
Huh?
Or next raise would be February.
Yeah,
or January.
I think.
So
I don't know when the next meeting is. I think it is. I think it would be in February. But the analysts that were saying, earlier this week, well, the Fed could raise rates again before dropping them. Well, if I don't know if that's going to happen. But if they start dropping rates in March, and the size of the rate drop will indicate how worried they are about a recession. And in a political year, that's what you're going to do. You're going to try, again, trying to walk that fence that the Federal Reserve always tries to do. But it's not a solution. There's not going to be a solution. It's the Wall Street Journal, I think it was last week or week before, they had an interesting article about, mortgage rates have actually been coming down a little bit and what's behind that. But, well, what would be behind that? If people aren't buying homes, when the people quit lining up because rates are higher and inflation is killing them everywhere else and they're not in home buying mode and the market cools, then you try and make it more attractive so you can pull some of those people back in.
Well, I think, did we talk about it on the air? That I think we did. I'm not sure in the last couple of days. There was a story out there talking about what's the best housing market city in the United States right now. Buffalo. What are you talking about, Buffalo? I thought they meant the metropolitan area.
Yeah, I think we did talk about that.
Okay. And they meant, no, the city of Buffalo, not the suburbs.
Oh.
The city. And I went, well, that's easy. Because they said, and that's a great sign. I go, well, is it? People are moving out of that city. The city has decreased drastically over the last couple of decades. The houses, you're not talking about new housing or relatively new housing. You're talking about houses that are, the vast majority are probably at the minimum 70, 80 years old. So people are moving out of them. There's a big supply.
Right.
So, yeah, the prices are extremely low. So, yeah, of course it's going to be, a great. So is that an indicator that the economy is rebounding, or is that an indicator that people are moving out of the cities and leaving a lot older homes that are a lot more to maintain, a lot more to, do maintenance on, and there's a huge supply of them available. And so
investors are moving in.
And investors are moving in, right?
Well,
that's a great point, too.
Which is what investors do. Look, when a market softens, especially real estate, well, that's when you go in and get your deals if you're an investor. When stocks drop, that's when Warren Buffett is buying. That's the equation. Buy low, sell high. Not too hard. What brings back the buying power of the average American family is the expansion of wealth. We talked about this. And it's not going to happen under the Biden administration or any liberal administration. The cost of regulation is killing Americans. The cost of spending, which is the inflation, is killing Americans and greatly has robbed them. I was going to say reduced, but it really has robbed them of the purchasing power. And people have blown through any savings they had and maxed out credit cards. And you're not going to change that equation. So what do? Well, expanding, an expansion of wealth, an expanding economy is something that lifts everybody and brings back that buying power. It's not going to happen overnight, but that's the only thing that turns this around. And there's not a Democrat that's promoting that at all. Look, they know. We talked about Newsom. No wealth tax in California. We don't want that because they know. But he's not promoting the expansion of wealth.
No.
Think about those two that coexist in the brain of a liberal Democrat governor of California, a massive economy. If you believe that the wealth tax is bad, then you should be doing everything you can to expand the economy in your state. And they're doing the opposite with the cost of regulation and the cost of state government.
No, it's a great point. If you're going to, where do you get this economic growth if everything that think about it, for EVs, for example, they can't make a profit on it.
No.
You can't build an economy. You can't sit there and say the economy's doing great because we're selling electric vehicles.
Right.
It doesn't matter whether you're selling electric vehicles. Are the companies making a profit on them?
Right.
Well, no, they can't make a profit on them, and they're getting massive subsidies, not just at the retail end, at the end of it, but in the manufacturing process across the board. They still can't make a profit. You don't build. So look at the electric vehicles. It shows the economy's doing great. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. No.
You got to make a profit. The companies have to make a legit profit out of it without taxpayer subsidies. They can't even make a profit with taxpayer subsidies.
Yeah.
That doesn't drive an economy.
No. And the OEMs have said it. We can't do this.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up following the top of the hour.
What?
The No Labels Party is thinking about a candidate. We'll have that coming up following the top of the hour.
I know who it is. Chris Christie.
You're right. It is.
I know.
But that's not who anybody who's on the left wants running in the No Labels Party, so we'll get to that. But we were talking about inflation here, and I love this one. Yellen dodges on lessons learned from getting inflation wrong.
Yeah, right.
She was first saying yesterday that people are completely and totally happy with their own personal situation. The only reason that people are negative right now is they believe other people are hurting, but they're all doing great.
They're fine, yeah. That's Janet Yellen, who hangs out with only rich people.
Well, and does mushrooms.
Yep. She's tripping with rich people.
She's doing the
tripping hard.
All right, we want you to give the most positive analysis. Where are the shrooms?
Yeah.
Give me the shrooms.
Exactly. And how many did you give to Fauci?
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.